Outlander, the fantastic show, did a time-traveling medical professional consider letting Benedict Arnold betray his country rather than intervening and say, "Nah, I'll just let him do it. The best show is this one." Having said that, this mid-season finale could have benefited from using something like 50% less Benedict Arnold. Although strange to say, the statement is accurate. Don't get me wrong, it's always entertaining to see Claire cross paths with these historical figures. The expression on her face when she realizes she just had a sweet little talk with Benny is perfect. But Outlander is finishing up the Frasers' involvement in the Revolutionary War, and there are a lot of strong emotions around it. I'd rather read about Claire and Jaime's frustrations with life, death, and combat than the reasons why one man betrayed them. Have I become irritable from spending so much time reviewing historical information for a show that was supposed to be about sexy Scottish people having sex? Probably. I won't say sorry. Despite its lack of eroticism, Season 7's first half has been quite intriguing emotionally, particularly in light of the connection between Claire and Jaime. They've never appeared to be as terrified as they have this season, and it has only served to make them more interesting as characters and as a couple. It's nothing new to see one or both of them in danger at any given time, and perhaps it's because they're older or because of the scope of the Revolutionary War. Considering how courageous Claire and Jaime can be at times, it intensifies the stakes to witness them grapple with the anguish they're going through seemingly at every turn. There's more to explore in this area. The episode begins with Jaime lying unconscious on the Saratoga battlefield, where we last left off. There's a woman picking through the corpses who appears to want to devour Jaime, and not in a playful, cannibalistic sense. Fortunately, Claire, who has been looking for Jaime all night after he doesn't return to the camp, shows up just in time and uses a sword to defeat the mother and her son. She threatens to kill you. Just give me a try. I'm wonderful. Jaime is essentially fine. Although Claire can readily treat his hand injury, it is not the main concern. Jaime raced into the center of the conflict when he was meant to remain out of it, which infuriated Claire because she was afraid when he didn't return. He's a member of the Riflemen, remember? She has become quite tired of Jaime's stupid hero complex, and guess what? I understand. It must be exhausting for her to have often seen this man on the verge of death. Why can't he do typical dumb man things like spend the entire day playing golf with his mates, get home just buzzed enough to be intrusive, and detail each and every swing he made while leaning against the open refrigerator door and stuffing leftovers from her dinner into his mouth? Jaime, why not try doing that once? He's unable. He can, however, explain to her why it is proper and noble to fight to save as many men as possible. Although Jaime's hand recovers quickly enough for him to participate in the Second Battle of Saratoga, Claire feels bad about having to let him go. She adores that man, who is also her blood relative. Claire is aware that this issue transcends her marriage. Claire insists that what they're fighting for is worthwhile in an emotional talk with Denny, who is in disbelief over all the violence and murder happening around him. She would be aware, surely. It's also the reason she decides against rescuing Benedict from himself. The war's outcome depends too heavily on how things turn out. Her desire for her husband to be completely uninvolved in the situation is understandable, though. You also can't blame exiled Quaker Denny for questioning the violence involved in it all. Not the only Hunter is questioning how his religious convictions fit into the world he has chosen to participate in. The moony stares that Ian and Rachel have been exchanging have finally resulted in their admitting their true affections for one another. Ian kisses Rachel at first, and Rachel slaps him for being so forward. But eventually they both express their feelings for one another. Unfortunately, they are both aware that Ian's entire philosophy, violence, murder, and a pretty little smile, is incompatible with Rachel's faith. Even if no one gave their hearts the news, they conclude it might be best to avoid going there entirely. But because Archbug makes an appearance at the end of the episode, Rachel will actually experience Ian's way of life. He develops a very "I'm gonna make good on my threat of revenge" look on his face once he realizes who she is to Eon. Will it ultimately be worthwhile to love Eon? Only time will tell. Enough with the love, let's resume the conflict. 2 weeks after the first Battle of Saratoga, the second battle is about to begin, and the fighting is too fast, too furious. Eventually, Benedict commands Jaime to kill his cousin Brigadier General Simon Fraser, but Jaime is unable to carry out the order. That man is kin, regardless of the color of his clothing. He chooses to shoot his weapon at a nearby soldier's hat, rather than killing Simon himself. Jaime is angry that his cousin died in front of him, but he is also preoccupied by the fact that William is the soldier whose life he nearly took with his own gunshot. For 8 episodes, the show has been building up to this moment, and when it does, Jaime is devastated. The British army is in chaos now that Simon is dead. The men follow Benedict's example and finally surround and capture their adversary's fortress. Jaime, though, constantly worries that William will be slain. His son can be seen everywhere. It paralyzes you. But everything does come to an end. Win for the Continental Army. After that, some odd things occur, and I don't simply mean that Claire helps Ben. With his heel turn, General Burgoyne grants a dying Simon's request to spend his final moments with family during a post-surrender truce, so Jaime and Claire are requested to travel to the British side. The interaction between Jaime and his cousin is amazing. They converse in Gaelic. They spoke fondly of their youth. When Simon passes away, Jaime prepares the tent in accordance with the Highlander custom of allowing the soul to leave. In enemy territory, Jaime had another intense moment. He meets William face to face. His nerves are bursting out of him, you can tell. He desperately wants to talk to his son, but is afraid to say anything that can be misconstrued or reveal who he truly is to him. Jaime tells him he owes him a hat and hands him his own. Although it's not much, William's mind began to make some bizarre connections as a result of it. Jaime anticipates that this will be the only adult conversation he ever has with his son. Sending all of the engaged British men back to England is one of the terms of the capitulation. They are no longer permitted to participate in the war. William is going to be okay. Another unexpected benefit of the surrender is that Burgoyne will only accept the conditions if General Gates agrees to assist in returning Simon's remains to Scotland. Jaime is once more responsible. Has a man ever been more delighted to transport a loved one's corpse across an ocean? Even though the situation isn't perfect, Jaime recently secured a ticket home to Scotland, and he can't wait to tell Claire. They are finally returning home. When Jaime buried the Jacobite gold in the Spaniards' cave in the 1980s, Rob must have led Jem through the stones to obtain it, Roger and Bree realize. The guy Tom abducted their son despite the fact that they are aware Rob won't murder Jem because he needs him. Roger does not pause. He is aware that the only option is to cross the stones, find Rob Cameron and save his son. Roger is more seductive than ever. Buck insists on going, which adds a cute touch. In Buck's day, Roger will need his assistance, and they are related after all. Buck is attempting to help his clan. As Bree and Mandy bid goodbye, Roger and Buck cross Cranadun stones without knowing what is on the other side. But let's not conclude on such a dark note, shall we? The conclusion to this episode is surprisingly cheerful. At the conclusion of their voyage across the sea, Claire, Jaime, and Ian are where we find them. In a hilarious callback, Jaime experiences seasickness once more. No matter how much he wants to represent the dignity of the American cause on this very English ship, a great Highlander is overcome with an ill stomach. This callback serves as a good bookend to another, much more emotional one. In a scenario that takes place in between the two conflicts, Jaime and Claire watch as Daniel Morgan attempts to incite the populace against the British by displaying how terrible and depraved they are. He takes off his shirt to reveal a back that has been scared by hundreds of lashes. Jaime was a willing pawn in his uncle's marketing strategies for the Jacobite cause. Daniel, however, is the one exploiting those wounds to inspire and control a mob. Jaime and Claire both appear to have witnessed a ghost. They'll be haunted by the past for the rest of their lives, won't they, those two? But what about the part where Jaime rejected acupuncture aboard the ship? A much happier memory for the Fraser family to recall. And before they can react, the boat has arrived on shore. When Jaime, Claire, and Ian exit the ship's deck, he is able to see his beloved Scotland for the first time in many years. They're all crying, the three of them. We are all.